Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session. We are just going to wait for a few minutes as all our attendees continue to dial in. We have a Mentimeter up for you to just get a few of your thoughts on what we're about to discuss today. So you can scan the QR code and you can just be ready to quickly answer it when the questions come up. So feel free to scan the QR code that you see on your screen. We'll be starting in less than 5 minutes.
Amazing. If anyone's facing any issues with just logging in, just drop us a message on the chat. But if you are able to log in and you can see the screen on your phone as well, you can just hit the thumbs up on the bottom right of your phone so that we just know that all of you are in on the Menti session. Brilliant. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you again, everyone, for joining in. Really appreciate you taking out the time.
So we essentially, Sanya, I see your question. The recording should be up on YouTube within a week typically. So you can find it on the NSRCEL YouTube channel.
Sanya, I would also recommend maybe if you have any questions that you would like to get answered, you can maybe drop them off here. So even if you'd have to drop out, we hopefully would cover the question and, we'll let you know about that as well. Of course, anytime. Amita, ready to start whenever you're good to go.
Yeah, I think can you give it one more minute?
Oh,
It's just about
yeah,
42 attendees.
for sure.
Just a few more minutes, just like one more minute. I'm hoping we cross
That
around.
sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good, for sure.
Has everyone been able to log into the Mentimeter? And I hope you're ready. We have a couple of interesting questions for you. Okay. See a lot of thumbs ups. Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. Let's not okay, with respect, let's respect the time of everyone who's dialed in already and let's just get started, I think. Uh
Yeah.
perfect, yeah. I think
Awesome. Yeah, amazing. Good evening, everyone. We're really glad that you could join us for the Founder Framework Masterclass, episode 4 now. And it's really thrilling to see a room full of founders gathering to reimagine the path to market success. Today, we're speaking about the real world guide to go to market, or GTM, as everyone knows. And we're really going to dive and bring out real life experiences from our two experts that are going to be leading the session today. But just setting the theme, and of course, introducing ourselves. My name is Mohini. I'm from the WeWork Labs team. Really, really nice to see all familiar names and faces on the call here. WeWork Labs is ideally the acceleration arm of WeWork India, and our prime goal is to help founders achieve their goals faster and efficiently. And one of the things we wanted to focus on was building stronger foundations for the founders building in our communities. And when Samita and I got together, we realized that there's a very unique perspective that we could bring in once we joined hands, where we bring in frameworks and we bring in practical knowledge and combine that together. So in the next 90 minutes, you should walk back with frameworks that you can test, but also see real life examples of how they look in the real life. And that's primarily what we aim to do. So I'm really, really happy to see all of you. I'm just going to invite Samhita also to do a quick round of intro.
Thank you, Mohini, and welcome back, everybody. So happy to be doing the fourth episode of this series. So yeah, like Mohini said, our essential, like the goal of this entire series is to bring two not starkly contrasting perspectives, but perspectives that just challenge a couple of nuances about topics that are very relevant to founders. And first principles are first principles for a reason. Gotta go back to them when you're building, and we just like bringing different actionable insights on those to you. And that's what this entire masterclass is about, right? So really, really nice to see, many of you dial into each of these episodes. It just gives us this comfort knowing that this is relevant to you. And yeah, I think with that, I will not keep you from the session any longer. Mohini, over to you. Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Samita. Let's start with the core idea, right? All of us here are founders, and we hear terms like if you've achieved product market fit, you're great. But just delivering a product people love is not enough. It's also delivering it in a way that's repeatable, that's efficient, that's scalable. And that's where the concept that I'm sure many of you would have heard about, Sajid Pai's Busy Founder's Guide to PMF, speaks about one's, of course, product to problem fit, and the other one is how you take that product to market, which is the motion to market. So today is all about crafting that motion to market fit for each of your startups that you're building, and we hope that it brings more clarity. So before we dive into the session, let's make this session reflect what's on top of the mind for you. We're running a few quick questions on Mentimeter, so I hope everyone's already on it. It's really simple, 4 questions to really understand who's in the room, what some of those challenges are, and just a quick pulse check before we begin and tailor the session real time. So without further ado, the first question that we really would love to know the people in the room. On your phones, you'd see a couple of options. You can select the one that's most relevant to you and click submit. We'll just give it maybe a few seconds. This is really, really helpful for our two experts here on call to really tailor out the ideas and frameworks that they are going to speak about today. Well, I think most of us are a large part, I think, is a fairly diverse, slightly growth stage. We're at MVP, early revenue, growth and scaling. And I'm sure Shashwat's actually going to cover a lot of this in terms of phases that will be really relevant to all of you here today. So thank you for participating. What I'd really like to start off with is just understanding what's your biggest GTM challenge right now. And if you were to sort of look at GTM or go to market, it could be funding, it could be allocation, it could be channels to use. So we'd really love to understand what some of your challenges are currently that we could really craft out. Marketing, definitely distribution, sales, pilot testing, very interesting. Yeah. Finding the clients. Yeah, I think finding the right channel to reach out to them, finding the right clients to go after, that's completely what GTM encompasses. Amazing. Channels, marketing, sales, funding are the top ones. Brilliant. All of these definitely are challenges in GTM, and we hope to cover all of them today. But thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm going to head to the next question. Is just a reflection question on if we were to ask you today, how confident you feel about your current GTM strategy. This is completely anonymous. It's just a way for us to reflect and start the session with an open mind and to get a real check-in on how we feel about our current strategies. I'm going to give it a few seconds here. Yeah, if you have submitted, you can just press thumbs up on your phone. So I'm good to know that we can proceed further. Amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for everyone to be honest. Midway is definitely better because there is a lot of room for us to grow, but there's also a lot of learnings that we can craft to make it even better. So hopefully we're closer to the almost absolutely confident part by the end of this session. Sorry. Okay. Next one is if you could walk away, and this is purely for our speakers as well, if you could walk away with clarity on one GTM question, what would that be? We've actually received a lot of questions and we've shared all of them with both the speakers. But if there's one thing that, we'd like to know from the audience. Amazing. Readiness. Yeah. Channels, that's absolutely amazing. We're covering that as well. Conversions, LinkedIn marketing, absolutely. GTM structure, same product, new market. That's really interesting. Where do I find my customers? Market research. Amazing. Thank you so much. This really sets perspective for our audience here. Really, really appreciate you sharing this out. Awesome. And I think with that, we've sort of set context to today's session. So thank you all, first of all, for participating. I think that really gives us, opens up the mind and in terms of what we are here to learn today. And we're really excited to have both our speakers in. And it's an honor to really try and describe their experience in a few words. I'm really excited to introduce Randhir. He's a technology leader, serial entrepreneur, educator with over 20 years driving AI analytics, digital transformation. He is a former chief strategy officer, visiting faculty at multiple IIMs, and he truly blends in, I'd say, technical expertise with strategic vision and I'd say is a friend to founders. I think that's what Samita and I have been speaking a lot about. So Randhir, thank you so much for taking our time today. We're really happy to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me here, guys.
Of course. Next up, we have Shashwat, a highly rewarded B2B GTM leader with over 20 years of experience. Shashwat specializes in designing GTM frameworks, driving enterprise demand, building partnerships across many industries. A lot of the founders that are here today, again, combine strategic insights with relentless execution. And I think his entire day is broken into speaking to multiple founders, multiple channels, multiple challenges in the go-to-market field. So thank you so much, Shashwat, for bringing all the experience that you have for our founders here today.
A pleasure to be here. Happy to start this and
Yes,
get going.
absolutely. With that, I hand it over to you, Randhir and Shashwat. Thank you so much.
Lovely, guys. That is such a interactive and a nice way to open a session like this, and especially if we are talking about GTM. And if we do not have the audience already plugged into what we are really talking about, then we will not be practicing what we would profess or share in our discussion today. So again, a warm welcome from NSRCEL side, Shashwat, to the session. And I want to kind of just take a minute or two to give you a bit of a background of how I have seen the idea of GTM and the kind of questions and the posers that have come across. One thing is very clear, that the idea of the GTM is still only half understood. And there used to be a very interesting joke that used to go for marketing earlier, which was like every marketing manager knows that 50% of their marketing budget is a waste, but they don't know which 50%, right? So I think that can be extended to GTM now and say that, people really will feel that the efforts on the GTM, 50% of that is only working. But again, no clue of which 50% is working. And many a times, Sashwat, my thinking has been that it's not a weak product that leads to failure. It is basically less understood or misunderstood GTM strategy that has been the cause for multiple failures, right? Means once we sit and start thinking about an offering to a particular category of clients, there is very unlikely that we would have hit the mark big way into identifying an opportunity that exists. However, when we go and talk to the people who will eventually buy that particular product or pay us for our services, we don't seem to convey the same excitement, the same enthusiasm on that. And a lot of examples that we will be talking about today comes from some of these practical experiences, right? And quite a few times we will also get a feel that post facto we basically have a lot of wisdom into saying, hey, listen, Baiju failed because they had this particular challenge, right? And it would be very hard or very I would say really, injustice to say that Baiju didn't have good brains or great thinkers in their team, especially the scale and things that they basically achieved. But then, when we are looking at some of the current happenings, when we are looking at some of the way things have unfolded, for instance, in the AI space, there will be a lot of examples and a lot of learning that we see in that. And many a times, I also very quickly come to the part of saying that, and I see that in my classes as well, when we talk about some of the reasons why the GTM is so important and what part of the GTM is least understood. It is essentially still the product dominant view that comes out as one of the big challenge, right? So with that, Sashwat, I think that I will have some of your initial remarks and thoughts on our session before we launch into some of the key questions that I feel sets the context here. And as we progress, we will be happy to have questions from the participants, relevant to the topics. If there are some general questions or if there are something more unique, then please hold it off till the end. We have a lot of time allocated for interaction. So please, be assured that you will get your question most likely addressed by us. So Shashwat, over to you for your initial thoughts with this particular question. Why is it that we still feel GTM is so less understood?
I think you have hit the nail on the head. And uh, for once, I am on the side where marketing, which 50% is working. I've always been in the direct marketing side. And in direct marketing, you have to account for whatever you are doing in terms of what is the ROI and what has been happening. So for the last 24 years, I'm only doing that side of the marketing, which is slightly different from the above the line, and nothing against ATL, the way it is being done. However, what has happened is if you actually look at, say, I have 2 or 3 blocks. First is the pre-internet era when I was doing the direct marketing. Then the internet era from to the AI era, which is about 15 years, give or take a couple of years. And now the last 2 years or 3 years, there has been a huge change, right? In the last 3 years, all the playbooks have been rewritten. Literally, whatever I have learned, or whatever guys in my age group have learned, you have to quickly unlearn and then relearn the new scheme of things, right? So that's how fast all the marketing playbooks, all the sales playbook, GDM playbook, everything is changing. So that's the first context that you should have in mind. The second very important context that one should have in mind is that go to market is a very misunderstood term. Why? Because in an organization, who owns the go to market? That's a big problem. Is it the CMO or the marketing head? Is it the founder? or is it the sales head, or no one in between? It's almost like a Venn diagram where the center part, nobody, that's the core, but nobody handles it. So that is one big problem. And today, even if you actually do a Google search of go to market, you're most likely you will get the response as go to market is nothing but Google Tag Manager. That's how you will actually find it. So it is not taught anywhere. You won't find enough literature around it. So it's very important to kind of get into the practicality of the mindset. The third and very critical part on the GTM side is I personally feel that most of the in GTM, most of the folks are actually looking at not the foundational piece, but looking at the, and ladies, please allow me to use the term, the most sexiest piece in the there. So things like the channels, distribution, but what is getting into the core of it? I mean, who is the ICP? That's a very basic and a fundamental question. Nobody goes into it and nobody spends time looking at it. Or, for example, if you just do the 3W and H framework, who is my ICP? Why are they buying? Right? Where are they buying? Why should they buy? When should they buy? It's a very basic fundamental question. And if they want to buy, how are you enabling that process? These questions, if you have a good answer, then you can build on top of it. And that's the basic issue across startups that I've seen, whether it is in the seed stage or whether they are on the MVP stage, even in the Series A stage, many of them don't have a written playbook around these answers. So, Radhi, I personally feel that these are the critical areas that we should cover.
Oh, very, very well put. In fact, when we look at some of these big organizations and we kind of have these kind of challenges in terms of who really owns the GTM that you very nicely captured here in terms of the thoughts, and also the part about the way that AI is changing our own understanding of expertise and through interactions with the customer behavior and interaction makes it quite challenging or quite a new kind of a challenge than what we had known so far. So just to kind of give ourselves a simpler context here, while I know, Shashwat, that you have been working with a lot of large organizations, we are obviously talking about this session for relevance to people as we saw in the early to mid stage of their businesses, right? And in that kind of a context, just to clarify, who should really own the GTM in an organization for these kind of organizations?
So most likely you will have in the stage a co-founder, uh, typically not a not a solo founder kind of a thing, where you will have one either looking at the sales part of it and the other one looking at the technology and operations part of it. And at this stage, you will not have a product market fit or those kind of thing. So you are trying to actually figure out that, okay, this is the problem statement in the market and how am I addressing it? What am I doing to ensure that the product is not very feature driven, but it is helping the jobs to be done? And there's a very nice framework around it. And we can talk more about
Sure,
the
sure,
GDP.
sure.
That is very important.
Also, very clearly, and many a times it is also the challenge that we see that uh, the founders actually have a sort of a personal connection and a very strong liking for some thought or idea or something that they started working on. And many a times it works against them because they take much more time to understand what version of that same offering or same solution is what the customer is looking for in that sort of a manner. So some of this thing is going to really come out clearly. At this point in time, would it be worthwhile for us to spend a moment or two talking about a couple of examples where we know that the GTM was one of the big challenge that the that led to a shape of the industry. Like for instance, I know about the Zoom versus the Google Hangout that used to be the the Google as a browser, Google as a solution was available to everyone when the COVID happened. But somewhere suddenly Zoom was the one which became the big hit at that point in time, to the extent that Zoom had to basically acquire some very expensive hardware to just keep the demand, not going away for them. So, in that kind of a context, whatever you have said, can we just, base it into what really happened during that time and what stories we already know about, and elaborate on some of these facets? Because what you talked about in terms of the changing landscape, that COVID time was really a very big, shocking disruption that we all went through, and it threw a lot of these ideas very much in open. So, any thoughts on that?
So I mean, at that point of time, I was actually in Happy, and Happy was uh, travel uh, plus your any kind of a B2B spending that you are doing um, uh, related to travel, that product, and plus we also had a payment platform. So imagine when COVID hit us, suddenly there's no product to sell, right? I mean, nobody's traveling. So what do you sell? So overnight, the entire GTM went for a toss. And people are not traveling. Guys are trying to figure out what do you do with the software that you have already purchased or in the process of purchasing. Overnight, the sales guys had a big challenge that now how do I contact my customers or prospects? How many times can you phone, right? So this was a big problem. At that point of time, I clearly remember that we took two decisions. One was how do we transition into the payments part? So that was very important one. And the second one was that during this time, Happy actually invested a lot of time perfecting the travel product. So we knew that maybe 1 year, maybe 1.5 years, I mean, COVID will not last forever, right? Somebody will do something about it. At least that was the belief at that point of time. So that is when a lot of almost 1.5 years was spent on the perfecting the travel product. And as a result, the moment we came out of COVID, you would know that Happy was purchased by Cred, and then eventually now it has been purchased by Make My Trip. So imagine the product transformation that happened. And during this period, from the marketing point of view, what we did was CXO diaries, where we called in the finance heads, the CFOs, the CHROs, and the CIOs. For them also, this was a completely new domain, right? Nobody had seen in their lifetime this
True
kind of
that, true
thing.
that. And in fact, Moini has a very nice example as well, that she's talked about the Dream 11. And they recently decided not to challenge the government order on the
Right.
ban on the money part. And I am sure that there would have a very similar kind of a thinking into saying that I don't want to see this as a challenge, or rather it is a challenge which is an opportunity as well in disguise. And I'm hoping to see something really exceptional and great coming out from the Dream 11 team, because they have been doing good work when it was
They have actually gone into the financial services. If you look
correct.
at our last week, and they have a great team. Imagine IPL is happening, and the kind of millions of people have logged in, and suddenly if your uh, platform goes for a toss, then that's something that they have very rightfully done. Of course, there are challenges around it. I mean, but let's look at the merit of the reason
So
for.
one of the hidden message there also is the part of a very aggressive stand that means there is a meme that is going around. If you have seen that, all the sponsors of Indian cricket jersey have gone bust.
Just
So
saw, read that message over here. And this is absolutely true. Not just Sahara, Byju's, and Dream 11. There are a couple in between also.
yeah. There are. But then, doesn't it also opens our mind into saying that, when you are getting into these multi-year, multi-million deals, and especially for organizations like a Baiju or like a Dream 11, who are in such a dynamic space, their look at understanding what the ideal customer profile or what the ICP should be, it's very critical or very important, because that is where I would like to segue our discussion into these what I call as the 5 core pillars or the 5 core questions that the GTM must answer. Right, the first is being that what is my ICP, that is the ideal customer profile. Right, then what is the unique problem that I am solving for them? This is the, and very surprisingly looks very intuitive, but I have seen many an organization, many a founders struggling to really give me a one line answer to this. Right, it's not really that you need to have a one line part, but it should not be confused for sure. Right, and the part about that, it's not just about a product but also about how people consume my product and offering services. Right, so that becomes a very critical part as well. Then what kind of an approach generates the demand and delivers the value? Right, and there obviously we are going to spend much time in your own proprietary framework that you use in a very unique and a very special way. And then the final part that I would like to kind of spend some time in is how do we measure, right? Because being a part of the business school, we know that what can't be measured can't be managed, right? So coming back to the first question, right? What are some of the simple tips or simple directives that we can put forth for the audience here into saying that what is my ideal customer profile and what should I avoid when I am defining my ideal customer profile?
I think great question and very nicely put framework. I look at it in 3 stages, right? Yeah, the classical um, problem uh, statement in terms of how to solve this is that you look at the TAM, SAM, and SOM. Now, to me, SOM is the most important part, where what is the obtainable market that you can get, and that is something that we should focus on. So that's one part of very important part of it. The second very important part, which I feel is kind of critical for the ICP, is today, if you actually have to define an ICP, typically people will say that I'm targeting SMEs and I'm targeting maybe uh, uh, 200 employee company in, say, South region or something like that, right? Now, these are very, very, I mean, classically, we have been told that demographics, ethnographics are the segmentation variables. Today, you need to go beyond it. And what I actually use is called the JTBD framework, which is jobs to be done. Now, the way it has been defined is beautifully defined, which is what are the main jobs, what are the related jobs to whoever you are selling, right? So think about it. What are the main jobs? Is there a functional aspect to it? Is there an emotional aspect to it? right? So just to give you an example, suppose I'm a marketer. I want to buy a MarTech or AI solution. Now, for me, what is the most important functional aspect? How do I ensure that I can track my campaigns and I can give answers whenever I go and ask for money? People will ask me how much has been spent, why, what has been the benefit, and stuff like that. So that's the functional aspect. Uh, what is the emotional aspect? Can I actually say that with confidence today, I am using an AI tool which is able to kind of uh, promote yourself as a thought leader? What would be the social angle? Can I actually ensure that the community benefits from it? Right. So that's how the jobs to be done framework should be looked at in terms of that I am a marketer. What is the problems that I am facing? What are the areas that I should focus on? And how is it different? You are not focused on the product features. And that's a big difference between the two. So one should try and figure out the first one is what is the SOM? What is the jobs to be done? And then the third one, which Moini also mentioned, and is Sajid's framework, beautifully written, MMF and TMF. What is the problem market fit that you are solving? Now, once you take into account all of these, that will actually help you craft a better proposition. That will help you to kind of narrow down who is my ICP, what are the emotional needs, what are the functional needs, and then you will be able to do a better communication. You will be able to understand what are the requirements. So if you look at a B2B, it's not like a B2C impulse purchase. It doesn't happen overnight. Suddenly you think about something and or you are walking through a say shopper stop and you just see a dress and you buy it. It doesn't happen that way. There is a committee. There is a everyone in the committee has a different viewpoint, different functional need, different emotional need. If you can actually ensure that all of this is kind of written down in a document, and in a 30-second elevator pitch, you are able to deliver it, that's it. You have kind of done the job. Randhir, you are not audible. I'm not able to hear you.
I think, yeah, on mute. Perfect.
Sorry. Yeah. So a couple of very interesting questions, or rather the points here. One is that is JTBD or the jobs to be done similar to the value proposition canvas? Of course, it is very similar. In fact, the strategizer group took the jobs to be done to a much more granular level, breaking it down into pains, gains, and customer jobs. That is what they talk about. And the reflective part of it is actually how your actual offering design happens. So your value definition of pain relievers, gain enhancers, and the jobs that you are trying to tasks that you are basically taking from that jobs to be done list makes it very convenient and very simple to understand in that. So I have one simple question for the audience here that can I just see some of your, I have seen one Pooja already mentioning about her ICPs here, which is very well defined. I would like to hear a few more of the statements or see some of your statements into how do you really define your ICP? What is your ideal customer profile? Just put the messages there for us to have a look. I'm really looking at some very unique definitions if I can come across that. So while we wait for this, and we will come back to kind of look at it, what you already started talking about, Shashwat, is also the part of the unique problem that I'm solving, right? And the one of the critical challenge that the founders actually face is that they reflect themselves upon their potential customers, right? So they feel that if I am doing something this way, then that is how everybody would be looking at it or doing it, right? So that isn't really the best way to understand. And I kind of had my own experience when I started my career as a faculty. I remember that I used to spend countless hours, sometimes stretching into 8, 9 hours of preparation for every session that I would handle, right? And you walk into a class, uh, as a faculty, you are equally anxious because you are walking into an IM class and you are expecting some very smart and very well informed audience. But somewhere I realized that the amount of time that I was spending to nuance my course was taking away the uniqueness that I had in terms of modifying and adjusting myself to the reaction of the class. And I believe that that is what actually happens many a times when we go with some of these rigid ideas. So it is very good to have. So I see some really nice ICPs here, which is above 55, nice one. The what is called the silver economy as well. In that, I see. Mhm. So initial customer profiling, who bought my product, I profile them and they become my ideal customer to chase. Very nice. So this is a reactive strategy that we see here, Sashwat. Maybe a thought on, is it worth doing that you react to your response in defining your ICP, or is there a pitfall there?
Uh, I think uh, great approach if you're just starting out because you don't have a base, right? But what I've seen, and again, across startups that I've worked, uh, when you are actually doing or launching a new product, the typical customer base will be maybe a SME or that kind of a one, right? As you're evolving over a period of time, customer base will also change. So you have to keep that in mind that one, whatever I am actually going after, is there a repeatable potential, right? Now, the way to look at it is that have you actually gone and asked your customer why did they buy, right? Or have you just assumed that, okay, these cohorts are buying, and tomorrow, if suddenly something changes, what will you do? So that is a very important thing to keep in mind. The third one would be that, see, friends and family will not buy forever, right? They can buy once, they can buy twice. And if you insist, maybe the third time. The fourth time, they will say, boss, you figure out.
Or
So
you
that
do
is
a Baiju where then you have your sales team go to their friends and family.
so you have to ensure that the sales motion or the product motion, can it be a repeatable one? Can you ensure that they will again and again buy? Not just, so I remember initially when I had actually taken Notion, initially I had thought it was a productivity tool about 2 years, 3 years back. At that point of time, I used it once, took became a paying subscriber. After that, I realized that this is not useful, and I moved out of it. Now, again, after looking at the AI stuff that they are doing, now it has become suddenly very useful. So, see what is happening. Earlier, I was the ICP. Suddenly, I did not become a ICP, and now I am again a ICP for them. So, this will change. It's almost like you are growing up and your customer is also growing up. So, my 2 cents, you have to look at it from the outside in perspective. A lot of people look at it from the inside out perspective, and hence you will have hundreds of features. those features are useless if it is not helping the customer do something more, or whatever is the emotional aspect or functional aspect of, unless it
Well,
is
well said, well
solving
said.
that one.
In fact, one of the things that we always handle in the marketing class very early in our MBA curriculum is this whole thing of the better mousetrap problem, right? The thing to realize is that we don't really enjoy looking at a dead rat, be it caught in a cage, be it poisoned, be it stuck on the sticky pad, or smashed by one of those really violent mousetrap. If somebody could give us a solution that the rat doesn't enter our house, then we are addressing the part that we want to rid our house of the pest. We have no interest in catching that pest, right? So
Absolutely.
that is a very good. So there are two very relevant questions that had come in early that I feel would be worthwhile for us to just bring in now. One is that in terms of the customer interview and user analysis, how does it augur with the idea of the ICP, as well as understanding the customer value, the value that the customers seek from our solution? And the second one is about false positives before scaling. So the part there we were talking about, that reactive strategy, there is a big challenge of false positive that you have to be very, very careful. And there could be a challenge of overfitting if I were to talk about the technical data-based analysis as well, where some of our biases really turn out to justify some of the decisions that you make. So on those two parts, in terms of how has customer interviews and user analysis helped some of the companies that you have worked with, Sashwat?
Uh, See, actually, user interviews are very relevant if, for example, in a B2B scenario, there are a buying group member. What that essentially means is one person is not taking a decision. You have a panel of about 6 to 8 or 10, depending on the product. So, in that scenario, what is the context of maybe a CIO who is taking the IT part of the decision, or maybe a CISO who is taking the security part of the decision, or maybe a CFO? All of them will have different functional need, different emotional need. How are you focused around it? That becomes very important. At what stage of the buying cycle the other decision maker is coming into picture, and how are you solving for it? That becomes critical. So, in that way, if you try and address it, it becomes much more easier. The second question, again, I
That
don't
is
have a state.
regarding the false positive issue that we are talking of. But that is actually, don't think that we really need to answer it in a very detailed way here, because we just have to flag that particular thing, that there is a possibility of a false positive, and you need to keep looking back. There is a very interesting story of the washing machine sales in the North India, and they were very surprised at the amount of washing machine being sold there when it was introduced, and we are talking about the 80s, versus the sale of the detergent, which was supposed to be up as well as the washing machine gets used. And then they realized that most of the washing machine were used by the milk churners. That was the perfect solution for them to be able to get the butter out from the cream that they used to churn using this washing machine. So some of those kind of challenge certainly exist in this context. Moving on, I have one very interesting piece that we are now getting into, and just to also keep in mind that there is a question about multiple stakeholders and an extended problem solving that happens when some of the products are bought, where obviously my daughter would want to have the latest model of the phone versus a shoe or a sneaker or a jeans, versus me taking a call on what is it really worth and how do I really want to expose her in terms of some of these kind of a product. So before we get into the part about the customer journey, just a couple of thoughts around the part when some of this kind of a decision making process is involved. And in B2B, obviously, it is much more prominent because gatekeepers are not necessarily your business decision makers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are various, again, frameworks around it. You can actually use the simplest one, which is the band framework, where you figure out whether they are taking the budgets, they have the budgets, they're taking the decisions and things around it. Or you can use a
Can
very
you elaborate on
sophisticated.
that framework one more time so that the audience can really understand what that framework entails?
So band is nothing but what is does the person have the authority to
You
take
were
the decision?
frozen for a
Do they
moment.
have
Can
the
you start
budgets?
again, Sashwat? You
Am I
were
audible
frozen
now?
for a moment.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was saying is band framework, it kind of gives you a very good clarity whether they have the budget. B stands for the budget, right? If the decision maker is talking to you and they don't have budgets, no point in wasting time, right? The second is authority. Now they might talk and talk till the cows come home, but if they don't have the authority to sign that check, then that guy is useless for me. And you need to keep that in mind, right? Do they have the need? That's the third one, right? Or is it some random decision that they are taking? If there is a need, again, the need can be, is it a painkiller or is it a vitamin? A painkiller, you need to solve it now. Otherwise, the pain will increase, right? A vitamin, even if I solve it after 1 month or 2 months or 1 year, doesn't matter, right? So that is something that you should keep in mind. And P, the last one is timeline. When will they buy? Are they buying today? Are they buying 1 month down the line? Are they buying 6 months down the line? Or will their decision kind of go on till about 1 year? And
Lovely.
accordingly, you can actually ensure whether this guy is a false positive or should I focus on those. Yes.
No, sounds good. Sounds good. And just to kind of close the loop on that, one of the things that I have always advised the companies that I have worked with on this is not to forget the huge feedback or the huge information that they get from the online websites, which is open to everyone to see. And today's AI actually helps you analyze and give you a very good idea relating to what people are complaining about, what people are unhappy about, what they are willing to pay for, what are the things that they really are excited about. So using some of these channels also becomes very, very useful rather than just getting into detailed interview and one-on-one interaction, because many of the startups might not have the bandwidth or the budget to do some of these as well. Lovely. So let's then quickly
Just
go.
one point on that,
Yeah.
and very crucial point that tomorrow, I mean, God forbid, if something happens, and if, say, for example, tomorrow suddenly I'm sick, I can't be Googling at that point of time, or I can't be asking ChatGPT what is the problem with me, right? At that point, you need very good diagnosis by an expert. So that is as a founder, you have to figure out, is this the time when you actually are in that kind of a position, or do you have time to figure it out? That was the
Lovely.
only
Lovely.
point that.
Lovely. So quickly now moving to the part which relates to the customer journey itself, both in terms of the B2B as well as in the B2C kind of a context. The question that we really need to understand is how do customer buy or consume the solution, right? And I don't think that we really want to, means I also want to make sure that we don't consume the questions time that we have allocated. So I'm also going through the pieces, and I really want to give more time for your epic framework to come in, which is what we will open in the next part here. But when we talk about the customer journey and all, I would just kind of say that it is one of the best use that you can put Gen AI onto. If you really ask some powerful and revealing questions about both classical as well as challenging. So you can also ask question that I would like to challenge the customer into finding new ways of using this particular product, and you will be very surprised in some of the creative answers that you can get from that. But yes, like you said, that the journey of the consumption, the journey of the customer, the reordering process, all of that gets into the picture when we really talk about defining my GTM in a good and a great sort of a manner, right? So lovely. That is something that we said. Now, what we are talking about, that and which is the crux of our discussion, is that how does GTM really identify or generates the demand, and how does it really help in delivering value?
Awesome. So just taking a step back, uh, now that you have the JDBD, you have very clearly identified what is the issue, uh, what is what are you solving. That part is very clear. And then what is your value proposition? Assuming you have all of this, and then if you go back to Sajid's framework, the PMF part and the MMF part, right? So whether the problem market fit, I'm assuming that has been solved, then you want to get into the motion market fit. This will happen when once you have crossed the seed stage, you are somewhere in between seed stage to the series A or a series B. And that is where your GTM motion is something that you will actually start thinking about. The way I have defined it is that at any stage, you need to look at four different things, right? Any organization, startup at any stage, will have four very critical things. The first one would be the sales part, right? Assuming that there is a product and there's a product team around it, then you have the sales team, then you have the marketing aspects, and the fourth one is you have the customer success. These four are the building blocks on for any product, right? And what happens is, depending on the stage, you will maybe in the first initial stages you don't have a marketing guy, but as you move forward, you start adding these blocks. Typically, that's how most organizations work. So, looking at these four stages, I've created the EPIC framework. EPIC is four things. E as in the ecosystem, right? And that falls under the sales bucket. How is the ecosystem helping the sales team? So that's how I look at it. The second one is P, which is the product bucket. How is the product helping growth? What is the PLG motion? What are you doing in the product to ensure that you are addressing the needs of the prospects and making them into clients? So that's the second motion. The third one is I, as in inbound and outbound. You start with inbound and then you move to the outbound. The idea is that if you have a website, or if whether it is through ChatGPT or any of the AI, how are you getting the inbound leads? If you are getting the inbound leads, are they relevant? Right? So that's the I part of it. And the last one is community, which is how is the customer success looking at the existing customers, Can you have build case studies? Can you build references? Can you build testimonials? And if you are in a slightly evolved phase, can you go after and create a customer advisory board? So this is how I define the EPIC framework, and this is how it can be put to use. Does that make
Lovely,
sense?
lovely, Shashwat. So one of the key thing here, which is what I feel everybody would like to kind of dig a bit deeper on, is why do you really make a distinction between the ecosystem and the community in your whole framework? Aren't they the more or less the same thing that we are talking of?
So great question. It is almost like a before and after. Think about it in that manner. Before they are buying product, there's a sales team involved, there's a partnership involved, there is a whole lot of peer group involved, and then you take the decision. So that is the E part, which is the ecosystem part.
So is
Once
it
they,
similar to the TAM?
it is almost similar to the TAM, but I've narrowed it down to the SOM because I kind of hate TAM. It will give you a global number, and then you'll figure out that you're not even catering to half a percent of it, and that doesn't make sense.
Lovely.
So
And so
look
what will
at
be
it.
the community in the same parlance then?
Community is now they have become the customer, right? Are they repeatable? Can they refer more customers? What is the use case? Why are they using it? What is the ROI? And using this, you can again feed it back to the ecosystem and say that these are the benefits that they are gaining, and hence become our customers. So it's almost like so think about it in such a manner that earlier the entire sales cycle was a linear sales cycle, right? Now the funnel is no longer linear. Some call it like a bow tie, some call it whatever you want to call it. It is almost like a circular thing that moves on. So from ecosystem to PLG, maybe to PLG, from PLG to the community part, and you can actually also build in the dark social around it. So that's how typically decisions are getting made, especially on the B2B or even on the B2C side. And that's how this framework kind of caters to it.
So the power of the framework, Shashwat, that you are talking about is simply demonstrated or understood by this particular fact that you just mentioned about the community. Because if you do a simple search on what does GTM, try to find the definition of GTM anywhere, they actually just talk about these two things, right? Systematic and repeatable customer acquisition process, right? And that is what we are talking about in terms of this whole community process. Are there any other pieces in terms of the product that needs to be understood more closely? Because what I see is that many a times the founders are uh, means it requires a level of passion, it requires a level of madness for somebody to really go and believe that the world needs an iPhone, for instance, when there was nothing like that before. And it becomes also uh, a challenge for the future generations into saying that the customers don't really know what they want. So it is basically for me to go and give them a product that when they realize what they really want. So in this kind of a context, how does the P in your epic play out?
So I'll give you a very recent example. Uh, uh, Everyone knows OpenAI, everyone knows ChatGPT, right? Uh, Sam Altman, in his tweet, has mentioned that only 1% of the people were using the reasoning capability of ChatGPT. That's a startling fact, right? Even after 2 years, people are not using the reasoning part. That is like, that's one of the reasons why they have actually collapsed all the models into uh, five five version and maybe a legacy 4.0. So that's a very I thought it was a very unique uh,
Problem,
you
yes.
know But coming closer to what I do, one of the best examples of community that I give is, if you look at either the Google developer community or very recently Lovable. Lovable is a vibe coding app. I'm sure most of the guys in the room already know that. Lovable has a beautiful community. They are kind of continuously changing, they are engaging. They actually had a 2 day, almost similar to a hackathon, uh, Lovable and Bold. So those are the community which, some examples which I would usually give to people. Does that answer the
No,
question?
certainly it does, and the examples are only becoming much more apparent here. So the key here, in my thinking, Shashwat, that I feel it is important for all of us to accept here is that while a definition of a product, definition of the market that you are trying to go with, your definition of the ideal customer profile are very critical, very important, very valuable. At the same time, you have to act as your own competitor to see what is it that am I missing in this whole scheme of thing, that somebody can come through and do a deep mind on me, than what we are talking about, what happened in the AI space itself, right? Deep seek to deep mind journey that we are talking of in that sort of a manner. So that's very nicely put there here. There is also one point here that you mentioned something about the customer advisory board, right? So can we just spend some more time and help understand what we mean by that, and how relevant is it for the target audience that we have for our session today?
So I noticed about 30% are in the growth and scaling stage. Uh, the customer advisory board is only relevant to them because now you have a product which has a product market fit, whether you have a problem market fit or a motion market fit, and now you want to grow. That is where customer advisory board is very, very critical. I've done a couple of customer advisory board. The best one actually was in retail. And what we did was that at that point of time, we wanted to be very clear on the vast products, value added services. How can it work for the enterprises, right? We had a good data product, but vast product mobility had a good value proposition for B2C, but we did not have for B2B. And that's when we actually engaged close to 30 odd CIOs and had almost like a very close discussion. This was never published anywhere, but we had a very close discussion in terms of that here is this product, here is the VAS idea. Do you think it makes sense to you? And we heard them, we heard their use cases and their viewpoints. And that's very important. You have to keep a very neutral view on that. So if you are open to that kind of a scenario, that is when you should go for a customer advisory board. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it till you are Series A or Series B. Does that answer, Randeep?
Yeah. I think that certainly covers the pieces there. So I think we have done much of our points that we had. The final piece of the question that I had initially, which was relating to how do we really measure the context of the this whole thing, that what are some of the leading metrics that could be used. So I'm specifically asking leading versus lagging metrics here, in the sense, because once the money is spent, there is a lot of learning, but then if you only have learning, there is going to be very, very challenging revenue situations.
So in marketing, this space is going through a huge churn. Earlier, MQL was considered as a very good leading metric. Now, MQL as in the marketing qualified leads. Now, people are moving away from it. At this point of time, and again, this is my thesis, that how many discovery calls are you doing? That becomes a very important metric. How many demos are you doing? Because once you do the discovery calls, once you do the demo, hopefully you have understood the need and then you have done the demo, and then you get into the proposal and the negotiation stage. So if you have a one metric to track, then discovery calls is the best metric to track. You can also look at it from the point of view that how many people attended the discovery call. Were they decision makers, or there were some random guys who you will never encounter in the buying cycle? So that's how you should look at it.
Right. And there is one interesting question that in some of these mass consumer platforms, for example, DMart, Zepto, uh, what is the role of community in that context?
Uh,
I will start by giving you a bit of a direction on this. So the primary thought that is there, what happens is that as more and more data is accumulated, as more and more insights and understanding is actually accumulated with your interaction with the customers, you don't really need to have a live or an active inputs asked specifically. You will naturally know what are the customers drifting through. So your community becomes a smart community if you are able to extract that data, be it the time of the day, categories, behavior in different weather conditions, behavior to different promotions, offers, right? So if you actually look closely at these platforms on a daily basis, almost they are experimenting with newer and newer things, which actually helps them understand the micro communities that is forming within the mega community that these places have, right? So there is a huge opportunity, or there is a big play today, given the fact that everything is leaving a digital footprint. So community becomes a very interesting and a very unique play there. Anything to add, Shashwat, to that?
uh, Two things on that. One, of course, once you're collecting all of this data, privacy is very important, right? And there are various contours to it. We'll not get into those, but that's something which now you, of course, have the DBDB law in India. You have the GDPR in the Europe. So you have to be very, very clear whatever you are doing in terms of data collection. Are you a data controller? Are you a data only utilizing it, or anything of that sort? So that is one part which you need to keep in mind. The second part is, again, if you look at, say, um, any of the Swiggies of the world, earlier there used to be a different UI. Today, if you actually see, you will actually find people are having that this is the most common uh, stuff that people are ordering, right? So smart order becomes a very critical piece. Or things like this is the stuff. If you buy this plus this, then you will get it at a bargain. So those kind
Lovely.
of stuff. But if I look back in my experience, and from a B2B angle, Locus was one of the companies where we used very frequently the algorithms. And in that, the path that you take, so depending on when you're doing the delivery, maybe you have a 4 o'clock delivery, which is the peak time, or if it is maybe off peak, what is the route that you take? So that is something that kind of defined with the more data that you have, the larger the community, the more data you'll have, and you'll have a better delivery. So that's how we approached it in Locus.
Lovely, lovely. So one of the piece that I think we could spend a bit more time, and there were questions relating to that earlier as well, is the choice of channels. And you have actually addressed that in some manner. And in the context today, when you have so many models, and making hybrid models makes it even more, I don't know, complicated or rich, whichever way you actually look at it. But what are some of the implications on the channel decisions with the context of the GTM strategy that you create?
So the very basic stuff that you have to look at, for example, if you are Ramali, or maybe if you are the cursors of the world or the lovables of the world, then you look at the PLG motion, right? How can you ensure that without the additional piece on the product, you start off from a freemium and then you move upwards and get into the other premium products. So that's the classical way of looking at it. Then in B2B, you also have a hybrid motion. Maybe it's not a PLG, pure PLG. Then in that scenario, you have the sales come into picture. Now, if you have sales, then are they the enterprise kind of sales, or are they selling to the mid market and the SMEs of the world, right? So direct sales or indirect sales, that becomes crucial decision. If you have indirect, do you have a distributor? Do you have a value-added reseller? Or do you have a value-added distribution guy, war kind of a guy? So those are again very important different aspects to look at. So depending on what your stage is, what is your product, you have to take all of these GTM decisions.
So it might be a good idea right now, Sashwat, for you to just show the very interesting graph that you had uh, with regards to the flow of the life cycle piece that you had, kindly showed us earlier. Before we get into a couple of more open questions, I think we have actually addressed a lot of questions within the session. So we will certainly have some more once you have gone through that. So please, Ashwat, if you can just showcase that particular.
I don't have it handy, Mohini. If you have it,
I can
or
show
let
that.
me.
It's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome.
You can see that, right?
Yeah,
Right. So this is, so I'm just going to go through that.
super. So you start off at the idea stage. This is the 0 to 1 stage where PLG, and I'm assuming that it's a software product, and hence PLG becomes important. If it is a hardware product, and one of the question is that what is this PLG stages for hardware? Actually, you don't have too many PLG stages for hardware. It's a one should not confuse solution, services, product, and SaaS uh, in the motion that you have. So that won't be relevant, but for software and SaaS products, this would be very relevant. Then you get into the MVP stage, and by this time you have done the value discovery. It's almost like the problem market fit is done, and now you are getting into that um, early stage. This is where you need to have a website so that people can actually look at it. If you have some partners that they can help in sales, and those are two things which is very important at the MVP stage. Moving on to the next stage, which is the seed stage, and this is where more or less whatever decisions that you're taking in the PLG framework that has now frozen, and you are very clear in your mind that this is the product that you're taking, and this is the MVP rounded. This is where the demos, the POCs, and inbound leads become very, very crucial. Then, once you're moving to the Series A, this is where typically I tell them to go after outbound, go after repeatable solutions, go after referrals, because by this time you would have sold to a couple of initial guys and you will get referrals and upsells. And then you move into the scale up stage, which is where typically you will have the VP of sales coming into picture, the CROs coming into picture. And this is where you can actually do a account-based marketing. Anything before this is useless, I would say. And anything, things like events and all, uh, definitely you can attend the events, but you have to be very clear in your mind when you're sponsoring them. So this is how I would suggest going about your
Lovely,
GTM
lovely.
strategy.
So great. I think we covered most of the things that we had in mind so far. Moini, I think we did take multiple questions in the way, and therefore I kind of took some of your direct question session. But over to you for the questions now.
No, perfect. I think we'll just open the floor for the audience if they would like to answer. You could either press raise hand and we'll invite you on stage, or if you're comfortable dropping in a message, happy to take that from there. And in the meantime, we'll just scroll through the chat and see if we've missed out on any questions.
I see Amit has raised his hand, so I'm just going to quick. Yeah. Amit, I think you should be able to talk.
Thank you, Mohini. Hi, Shashwat. Thank you so much for the lovely session. Shashwat, I thank you so much for guiding us through what models of GTM looks like and how a founder should be approaching it. But today, in today's competitive world, what we often face is through funded startups and especially brands and big names when they are also competing startups who are trying to make a name in their industry, is that they have a huge pool of data, they have a huge customer base, and GTM for them has become just to introduce a new product, whether they are an expert in that or not, but to introduce a new product to the vast audience that they have, and they will eventually find a market. They will learn, they will titrate, optimize the product, find the right pricing, and also try to create a niche for that particular domain in their product portfolio. So and to give in context, let's say there's a diagnostic company. It has a big, vast database of customers. It does not know anything about medicine delivery. It does not know anything about consultation, doctor consultation. It may not know anything about vaccination also, but they would strategically open up new verticals to offer those offerings to their vast database of customers, and that will become their GTM. How do you see a startup who is operating in a niche field to compete with such funded startups, and how a GTM of startup should differentiate from a funded established player in the market?
Uh, Great question. I would ask you a very simple thing. Can money buy you happiness? Definitely no, right? If you have loads and loads of money, will you be a happier person? It doesn't happen that way. So you need to get the DNA of the prospect and what is the need? Why are they looking at your product? That's how one should approach it. And how is your product solving it? Look at it from that angle. Just because you have money to throw around, as if that was the case, Byju's would have been one of the best companies, right? It didn't happen that way. So that's how you should look at it, um, from not from the money's perspective, but the customer need. Again, if you go back to the JDB framework, you will actually have the emotional need and the functional need. Look at it from that angle. Does that answer your question, Amit?
Yes, thanks, Shashwat. That helps. That identifying a niche in your customer segment helps you to stay relevant and also expand your customer base. But Shashwat, my question, another angle to this question is that often during this cycle of churn, it so happens that many startups die in the process. So, for example, till the time Byju's exploded, and we also came to know through various customers and through various media reports that yes, things are not working out for them. In the process, there were various startups which were either acquired by Byju's, which shut down in the process, or it was a long cycle for them to make revenue positive. So, how should we sustain that turbulent time so that the market gets calibrated and you find your right customer?
It's a difficult question to answer, and I don't have a straight answer to it, but maybe I can give two clues in terms of how to approach it. You have to remove the noise. You have to filter out that noise as a founder. That is very critical. The second one is look at it from first principles perspective. Are you solving a problem? Will they buy from you again and again and again? Right? If that happens, then you are in a good space. For example, look at the telecom wars, right?
Mhm.
We at one point of time we had around 12 to 15 service providers. Each of the circle had almost 4 to 6 service providers, right? Then all of them were crushed to death, and you have only four now, right? It took almost 5 to 7 years that this happened. How did Airtel survive and also come out as a winner? Purely because if you look at it today, nobody, geos or the Vodafones of the world are not looking at AI. But they have gone ahead, Airtel has gone ahead and tied up with Perplexity. Did they need to do that? Definitely not. But they are that forward looking company and they actually approached it as an opportunity. So look at it from that perspective and then try and work it out. But I don't have a straight answer, I must
No, I
admit.
totally understand your situation. And so thank you, Shashwat, for giving us a way or showing us a way how we can approach this particular problem. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Ask.
Thanks, Amit. We have another question in the chat box by Priya. When GTM is essentially founder-led sales, what is the best way to balance direct founder credibility with scalable channels that don't depend entirely on me? Any thoughts on founder roles in GTM? And how do they transition some of those responsibilities?
So one of the key thing that I want to bring out, and specifically till Shashwat gathers his thought around that, is that many a times an institutional form of the organization begins to appear only when the founder starts to trust the rest of the team that he or she is working with. And this is a huge transition process, not just for the business strategy, for even the GTM, because you need to really understand the part where you need to differentiate between uh, what you started by trying to do together versus what the market is saying that is closest for you to achieve success. So in that sort of a context, I always tell the team that either look at external experts, either look at people who can bring sectoral understanding, functional understanding to help you evolve your GTM, to help you evolve your strategy ahead, or start investing in building the team whom you trust, whom you feel will basically come and ask you those uncomfortable questions, which will help you evolve your strategy going ahead. Over to you, Shashwat.
No, I think you have raised a great point. And just building on it, I would say there are three very critical things to look at. One, the guy who is coming in your place to sell or whatever you want them to do, is there a repeatable motion in it, right? Are they giving the same story as the way you are giving and with the same passion? See, understand, you are a founder, you know in and out, you have met so many prospects and customers that you have kind of refined your whole story. Now, the guy who you are hiring may not have that kind of exposure. So that knowledge transfer, that KT becomes very, very critical. And over a period of time, the trust will only come once you actually observe and figure out that, okay, the knowledge transfer has happened, and now the person is able to sell on their own. This is a transition. It doesn't happen overnight. It will take some bit of time, and you will have, there's no straight playbook that you can just cut, copy, paste. It's something that will evolve, to be honest.
Lovely. So Divyesh's question here on the question and question answer panel here, which is very interesting piece. I'm just going to go into the part which relates to what are the most effective strategies to build trust and credibility quickly among the informal MSMEs from tier 2, 3 cities that are wary of the new digital financial services.
Uh,
I can give you one
personally,
example from the social segment where we basically had to go through multiple layers. One is obviously influencers, and that too being very specific in terms of identifying the key experts rather than celebrities to establish some of the functionalities, to establish some of the real value that you are bringing to the place, and also third party endorsements, like for instance some of the organization have association with these chambers of commerce, associations like ASOCHAM and those kind of part, NASCOM, which becomes very valuable in making some of these trust go beyond the usual skeptics, or rather the usual challenge that we face, that most of these services call that we get are really not what we are happy receiving. Over to you, Sashwat.
uh, so in my experience, and I remember, Radhir, you might recall, uh, for Nokia, there was a Nokia Life division, right? And that division used to go right to the last farmer and give very specific instructions uh, on whatever questions that, and that was conversational probably 10 years back, right? In on the feature phone, how are you answering that? That was
Remember that.
that was a very unique way in which feature phones were used. So mobile phone is one very, I mean, today it's the most ubiquitous thing in the planet. So if you can use that for the tier 2, tier 3 cities, that's a way of doing it. The other way I used to do it was in the Airtel days and in the HCL, where I used to actually hold in tier 2. We had at that point of time Jagjit Singh program in Bhopal, and people used to come there, and then it was a influencer session where the sales guys and the other local influencers came together, and they kind of connected with the prospects. So you have to figure out the 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 places where these guys are going. Maybe it's an industry association, maybe there's a meetup, there's something else. Figure out that part. Unless you are on the ground, you will not be able to from a boardroom figure out this
Oh,
aspect.
lovely. I think, Sashwat, we did cover all the things that we had outlined for the session today. And I think one of the summary that I have from the discussion that we do is that while the strategic part of designing a great GTM is very vital, and it's almost a success versus failure difference, what is equally important is to match action with your words, right? So whatever you do in terms of your GTM, in terms of promises, in terms of your pilots, prototypes, MVPs, and all of that, if you do not go through the part of delivering beyond the expectations of the people, all of this
Yeah.
will actually fall flat. And in that sort of a manner, I think that you really did well in terms of delivering all the things that we had promised in our GTM for this particular session. So thank you for your time on this, and over to our hosts, Moini and Samita, to conclude the session.
Amazing.
Awesome. This was really good. Mohini, sorry, I'll just take half a second,
Yes,
and I
please.
just want to leave with a toolkit, that 30, 60, 90-day toolkit, the audit framework of Epic, which will give you the answers that what do you have to do in the next 30 days? What do you have to do in the next 60 days and the 90 days? You can share the link with everyone. Thanks for inviting me. This was really, really awesome session for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Absolutely, Rantir and Shashwat, thank you so much. And thanks to the audience for your energy and your openness for the session today. Really grounding discussion in frameworks and actually live examples. So, really, really appreciate all of it. We spoke about a couple of things. We've put it on the chat, but we'll also share it with you. But I think the last piece that I would like to for you to walk back is encourage and sort of reflect back on what out of the 5 questions that Randir had mentioned do I not have sharp answers to? Or what Shashwat mentioned in terms of the EPIC framework, where am I underinvested? Where do I need to put more focus? And I think he shared a brilliant framework that can actually help you assess your GTM today and give you structured responses to what the next few steps should be. With that, I'll close our today's session. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you all for the next episode of the Founder Framework series. Until then, keep building, keep testing, and keep refining your GTM engine. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Randir and Shashwat, once again.
Thank you,
Thank you.
and thank you, hosts. You did a fabulous job. So really, thanks for putting this thing together.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
all the participants.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good evening. Happy holiday tomorrow. Awesome. Speak to you soon, Savita. Bye.
Right. Thank you, Mari.
Thank you.
Naveen will also share the link over Luma, so you can, it's all right if you dial off. We will send it over the Luma blast.
Awesome.
Awesome. I'm just going to end the session.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.